Okay, so I read I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. It's well, it's the Spanish version, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because I'm just gonna talk about the contents. So it's a very short book, around 100 and I think 90 pages. So didn't take much time to read, but it's a essentially a collection of stories, right? It's not like a singular a novel that goes through like a specific character throughout. There are characters that are, that happen to be within most of the stories, but they don't have any connection one to another, right? Just the only thing that connects everything is the of course the world that everything takes part in, and the I guess the theme you could say, because essentially what the books is about is different, well, of course different stories, but talk about the way that robots exist in this uh supposed futuristic world where there's robots with artificial intelligence, and there's three rules relating to like human safety. They're also instated to not let robots be, conscious and stuff. They have to obey people, and just to maintain themselves and not, destroy themselves by no reason. So essentially, there's different stories that uh, go through different situations that make you see how the rules work, how they're applied, and like particular things that make them, bend the rules a bit. See how like different paradoxes and stuff. So, for example, there's a whole story about a robot who can read the minds of humans, right? And so throughout the story, he is aware of like what every person thinks, but in this way, he's also restricted to the things he can say because uh, robots aren't allowed to harm humans, and words he because he can read the minds of people, he is completely aware of what he says can harm people psychologically. So he essentially, whenever you talk to him, the robot is only allowed to say whatever you most desired him to say, whatever you most wanted him to say. So he can't tell you anything otherwise. He can't. It's pretty much a useless robot because whatever he says will have to be in line to what you believe. So it's very interesting. There's different characters that go through things and they start believing things that the robot says, and there's like a big clash at the end where they have completely different, views on the subject, and the robot cannot state anything because whatever he says is going to be against one of the people that are present. So that's the kind of thing that it goes through. I thought it was quite interesting, to be honest, but it didn't really captivate me much. Mostly because whenever I read books, there's just one or two reasons I'll gain something from it. If it's entertainment value, if I read a book that I enjoy, obviously, and if there's some sort of, it doesn't have to be like an underlying message, but something, some kind of teaching, I guess you could say. So if I say read The Millionaire Fastlane, I'm obviously not going through that book because I want to enjoy a fascinating story about someone. No, it's a completely different reason you're reading the book. But and not necessarily a book has to be either one. You can read a book that can both entertain you and have a certain value to what you're gaining from it. For example, there was Crime and Punishment, which I thought was a fascinating story, but because of how good the author is, Dostoevsky, and he goes so deep into human psychology, is really interesting, and you get to see and think about, all these characters, all the things that they go through, and yeah, it's a very interesting thing. But when it comes to this book, it's kind of midway through anything. I didn't really gain anything from it. There's no underlying message, at least that I could tell. Maybe I'm just too dumb for it. I'm supposed to have like 5,000 IQ to understand something, but for what I saw, it's not anything to gain from it. And I thought it was, I guess, interesting, but it wasn't particularly entertaining. It wasn't something that really grabbed me, and I guess I had to push myself through the book to really get to an end. So that's about it. Yeah. when it comes to recommendations, you should. I mean, if you find interesting the idea of these futuristic scenarios, artificial intelligence stuff, yeah, then you'll probably enjoy it. But when it comes to anything else, if you think it's gonna be a fascinating story that everyone's gonna enjoy, not so much. So that's about it.